Hey, and welcome back to Jen and Dan's Natural Healing with Plants, the go-to podcast for holistic health seekers looking to harness the power of nature for health and healing. I'm Jen. I'm a passionate health educator, whole food plant-based culinary coach, and master herbalist, and I'm here with Dan. He's an exercise specialist and a wonderful master herbalist. Together, we dive into the world of natural healing, bringing you a wealth of knowledge and practical advice. We draw from both traditional wisdom and modern science with herbs and foods to help you achieve optimal health. So today we're talking about the kidneys. So kidneys are these little bean-shaped organs, and they filter about 50 gallons of blood every single day. So that is mind-blowing, how much they do. And they're so tiny. And then they have these tiny little tubules in there too that are so fragile. And we have to think about all the different things that go into our blood each day that have to be filtered to protect our body. So the kidneys, they help to remove waste. They help with balancing our electrolytes. They even help us to regulate blood pressure and create red blood cells and many other things. So where should we begin with the kidneys?
Well, first, I'd like to begin with they're pretty fragile. They have tiny little capillaries, and you have to be really careful with what you eat and drink to protect them because there's one doctor I listened to. He said that most people over 50 years old already have a reduced kidney function. And this is normal in America
That's
because
crazy.
yeah, and he was saying it's because of what they're eating and drinking and all these things that we know we shouldn't be doing, but we have a hard time stopping in America.
Yeah, that's crazy. And when you were talking about it, it reminded me. So I just finished this book in my book club, in my membership site. The Toxin Solution is the book that we just read, and I totally forgot. Like, how did I not think about that before we got on the podcast? So at the School of Natural Healing, we always talked about cleaning up the diet, cleaning up the body, detoxing the body, and we always start with the gut, and then we go to the kidneys, and then we go to the liver, and making sure that we clean the kidneys, but also rebuild the kidneys. But in the toxin solution, does the same thing, and so it's cleaning up the gut, making sure that we're eliminating, right? Poop. We have to talk about poop every time, getting the toxins out of our body, but then we also have to clean up the kidneys because of all the toxins in there. And so I'm thinking maybe that when you said that, most people over the age of 50 already have kidney dysfunction and disease. We're exposed to so many toxins, so many different things that we don't even think about that have to be filtered through the body. So the blood, it goes to the liver, where things are filtered out. And then the liver, depending on what process it uses to deactivate or neutralize a toxin, it either goes into one pathway to go through your kidneys to go out through your urine, or another pathway to go through your intestines, or even through the skin. And so most of those things are going to be going through your kidneys. And so we're surrounded by so many toxins. And so that's not even what I was thinking about talking about today, but maybe it's a lot, maybe that has a lot to do with it.
It definitely has a lot to do with it. And now, we're hearing almost every day when I log on to Google or Yahoo, there's an article about microplastics. It's I don't know, the next big boogeyman. I'm not saying it's not real,
Right.
but I have definitely curtailed some of my habits of, I don't drink out of plastic bottles a lot, but I've tried to stop drinking out of plastic now because they're saying they're finding microplastics in your arteries, the brain,
Yeah.
think about the poor kidneys, how small those little tubules are. So we're
Yeah.
probably getting microplastics in there. And then you talk out here now that there are forever chemicals in the water. And there's, arsenic. I saw an article yesterday, arsenic in some people's water now. So your kidneys and your liver have to deal with all these modern day stressors. And I had people say, but Daniel, our kidneys and liver, they can take care of everything on their own. They don't need help. Yes, no, you're wrong. 200 years ago, that might have been true, but we live in a toxic soup now, and we have to have support.
Yeah, so listen to this list. So I just grabbed my notes. So
Yeah,
chemicals that target the kidneys, um, POPs, plastics, pesticides, antimicrobials, solvents, flame retardants, antifreeze, petroleum, non-stick pans, and food additives. So like you said, so hundreds of years ago, humans were here. Our kidneys may have been filtering, but none of those things existed. And
nope,
so all of those are things that did not exist before that target the kidneys.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to be more prudent now. I don't consider myself a health fanatic, but
Mhm.
I implement a lot of the things we talk about on our podcast about eating, eating plant-based. One advantage of eating plant-based is lower on the food chain, so they have less toxins in some of your animal foods. Like say a regular chicken, chicken that's raised on a industrial factory farm. That poor chicken's full of arsenic and all the stuff they're feeding him.
Yes.
And
Is
then
it
the
called the
cattle and the
kettle?
dairy, yeah.
Yeah.
So all these things, our kidneys and our liver have to deal with all of these things, and it's stressing it. I mean, if over 50, it's not, we're talking like maybe 51, 52. That's not old, but we're already showing signs of decline at 51, 52, 50 years old.
Right. Right.
This
I,
isn't normal.
I really like that you mentioned the eating plant-based to help cut that down and eating organic and when you can. And I know that sometimes we need to watch that, using the EWG website, finding the dirty dozen, making sure you're buying those dirty dozen. Those are the foods that are most often contaminated with fertilizers and pesticides and things like that. So, making sure you buy those organic or growing your own or getting them from a local farmer that does not use those products. But one of the biggest strainers on the kidneys is excess protein. And here we are. We live in a protein world. So many people doing carnivore, right? And what happens is our body has to break those proteins down into amino acids, and those breakdown products are what clog and damage the kidneys. And so if you're not only eating excess proteins in animal products, you're creating those byproducts, and then you throw on top of that anything that was fed to those animals that you mentioned before. It's just going to add even more to it.
Yeah, so you're actually adding a stressor to your kidneys because you're eating all these high protein foods. And what we're saying is your kidneys are under a great burden anyway because of all the new toxins in our environment. So you would do yourself a favor of cutting down or eliminating animal protein and eating more, plant-based proteins are a little easier on the kidneys, they're easier on the human body because I think were designed for plant proteins. And even then, you don't have to necessarily eat like a lot of beans, like we talked about before. You eat plant foods that have amino acids, and your body takes the amino acids and it builds its own proteins. That's actually the least stressful on your kidneys to eat foods like, well, even green vegetables. Green vegetables have a lot of amino acids.
Yes,
You
they
know,
do. And a lot of them have nitrates. And so we need the nitrates to enhance blood flow, and we want blood flow to definitely run through those little tubules for your kidneys.
and the protein thing, I mean, it's ridiculous. The amounts of protein people are being told to eat. I mean, we're hearing like 200, 300, 400 grams a day. Man, that is so stressful and you're wasting your money and you're ruining your health. It's a waste of money. I found a legit study not long ago
Mm-hmm.
showing how much protein you actually need, even if you're lifting weights. It
Mm-hmm.
was something like 60 grams. They show that 60 grams a day, this is for a male that was
Right.
training, was enough to build muscle. And if they gave them more, it didn't do any good. They didn't build any more muscle
Thank you.
on more protein. It's a gimmick.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for sharing that, because there's so many people that are pushing that. And I work for a doctor, and the lead coach who um, is the expert in nutrition said that our body cannot process more than 30 grams in a meal anyway. And so if you're eating more than 30 grams in a meal, so if you're going to try to get 200 grams in a day, you're going to have to eat a lot of meals and give your body time to break those down, right? And so it's not, that's not just not possible. Our body's not made to eat that much protein.
Well, I heard that the protein myth came up when they started publishing bodybuilding magazines, I think back in the 1940s. And then
Yeah,
they learn how to process protein out of whey, they're like the waste products of dairy production. And so
yeah.
they're like, wait a minute, why are we going to do all this waste from our dairy, factory? We could turn it into protein powder and sell it to people. And
Mm,
so that's what they started
there you
doing.
go.
And then the bodybuilding magazines, oh yeah, if you're going to build muscle, you got to eat way more protein than an average person. That's how it got started. And it's
Mm,
caused a lot of problems for people over the years. Like I'm saying,
right.
there's most people over 50 already have a lower kidney function. Now think about it.
And that's crazy. That's crazy. So before we get into things to do, which we've mentioned a few, let's talk
Yeah.
about some symptoms and signs that there is a problem with the kidneys.
Okay. Well, one sign is, you start to get edema in the lower legs, I've seen people like that, feet, lower legs,
Mhm.
maybe even get puffy around the eyes, and you may have low energy.
Yeah, I'm picturing like swollen underneath the eyes too.
Yeah.
Maybe darkness under the eyes. I like to look at color too in the skin, so dark under the eyes. That can be adrenals or kidneys as well. When you mentioned the edema in the legs, now does that necessarily mean kidneys? Because I was thinking heart, it could also be a heart condition.
Well, it can also be our liver, actually. So you probably, if it's going on and it doesn't go away, it'd probably be prudent to get some tests run to figure out what it could be. It could either be, usually with that, like I'm saying, kidneys, heart, or even the liver if you have liver problems.
Mhm. I was thinking the heart is usually is one-sided, not both, but I'm not exactly certain about that.
Yeah.
Some other symptoms I know is frequent urination or little urination, which could also be like a UTI, which is can also be related to kidneys. Changes in urine color, which is hard to tell if you're taking supplements. Foamy urine, I see that a lot. Maybe some blood in the urine. And then itchy skin and muscle cramps because the minerals get out of balance. Because remember, our kidneys help us with electrolytes. So if our electrolytes are out of balance, then that could be a kidney issue as well.
Yeah. Also, you're saying frequent urination. Sometimes that can be high blood sugar.
Right. Yes. And that's the first thing I think of, when a client tells me that they're um using excuse me, always thirsty or going to the bathroom a lot. And my first thing is always blood sugar. But our sugars are also monitored by the kidneys, and so it can also go back to kidneys. So some of the labs that I like to look at, so I do review labs with lots of clients. I like to look at creatinine and BUN, which is blood urea nitrogen, and they show how well the kidneys are filtering waste. And if they're high, that can tell us that our kidney function is reduced. Also, look at EGFR, which is our filtration rate, and this estimates how efficiently the kidneys are working. So, under 60 tells us there's a chronic kidney disease. It should be, I mean, it's a percentage of how well your kidneys are filtering. And so like mine's 105. And so it should be optimal, right? And so if it's low, if it's 80, unfortunately in the conventional world, medical system, they sometimes it won't even tell you. It'll just say greater than 60. It won't even give you a number, which really makes me mad. But luckily, some of them do give you numbers because we need to be alerted before it gets under 60. Because, like I said, once it's under 60, that tells us it's chronic kidney disease. So, in the conventional medical system, they are only letting you know there's a problem when it's already a chronic problem. And so that's not good. So, we want to make sure that they are staying good and strong. I also like to look at electrolytes. There's so many things that can throw electrolytes out of balance, though. But sodium, potassium, and calcium, they can be out of balance if the kidneys aren't doing their job. Well, we can take electrolytes. First thing that happens when you go into the hospitals, they stick an IV in you, and that is electrolytes. And because it's so important to have those electrolytes in there. but the kidneys also monitor electrolytes. But stress can throw those off, excessive sweating, training, all of those things can throw electrolytes off as well as inflammation. And so it's really hard to just look at those numbers. And then there's also urine tests. You know, when we look at urine, we can show if there's proteins in the blood, if there's, protein in the urine, if there's blood in the urine, if there's sugar in the urine, and things like that. And so if there's any protein showing up, that's another thing that will tell us, hey, there's something going on with the kidneys.
It's good to get something so you can kind of target, see what your problem is.
Yeah,
So say we go and we're seeing that maybe we're having a little bit of problem with our kidneys. It could be, maybe some diminished function. So what are some of the things that we can do to try to, make the kidneys work better? Actually, and look, Dr. Schultz, he had people that were on dialysis, he said, and they were able to get off of dialysis. I'm not saying everybody can do that, but I am saying it is possible
it
for
is
some
possible.
people.
Yes, yes. So there's lots of different systems, but they all come down to about the same thing. We need colorful fruits and vegetables. So I'm going to start with the most basic. Colorful fruits and vegetables, which is what we tell everybody all the time. That's for heart disease. That's for your brain. That's for your heart. That's for your autoimmune, all the anti-inflammatory diets, but also they're just so high in antioxidants, anti-inflammatory. So eating the colors as much as you can. Thinking about bright berries, blueberries, raspberries, things like that. Eating your dark leafy greens, having beets, things like that. But then I also think about because the kidneys filter um, antimicrobials, I like to think about like ginger juice. So ginger juice, um, and you may know more than me because you're a better master herbalist than I am. Ginger juice is so antiviral, antibacterial. It's like my go-to whenever there's anything going on. And so I want to make sure that if there is a pathogen of some sort going on, that's something that would be useful to help, kill anything that should not be there and that could be interfering with kidney function.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's some wise wisdom there because our ancestors, they added antimicrobials to their meals because, back then they didn't have antibiotics for you to go to the doctor, but they
Mhm.
just knew intuitively to add things to the meals that can help kill microbes like ginger. You can have garlic, things like that. And even the juniper berry, that's in a lot of kidney formulas because it does have antimicrobial properties. A lot of people don't know that about juniper, but and of course it increases urine flow. But that's a good point because some things that affect the kidneys we don't really think about, like you're saying, antimicrobials also the bacteria that causes Lyme disease, which is
Mhm.
a horrible, horrible disease, but it can actually uh, damage the kidneys if you don't kill. And you remember when we were in school at the School of Natural Healing,
Mhm.
that doctor that taught the first day, he has a book about how to cure Lyme disease. And it was, it's herbal. I think he said cat's claw is one of the best herbs against it's a spirochete bacteria. I can't think of the name.
I can't think of it either.
But yeah, but the thing about the Lyme bacteria, the reason it's so hard to kill is cool. So when you start taking antibiotics or herbs that kill it, it goes and it hides in your muscle tissue, your nerve tissue.
Yeah.
And so there's another herb called, of course, I can't think of it this morning, but there's an actual herb. When you take it, it forces this bacteria out of the tissues back into the bloodstream so you can kill it. And I can't think of the name this morning, but I thought about it
Maybe
when you
it'll come
brought
to you.
up.
Hopefully it'll come to you because there are a lot of pathogens that will do that. They will go in and
Yeah.
hide. And then there's also like we have the ones that we really need. We're kind of going off subject, but we have the ones that we need that are supportive in our body,
Yeah.
because not all bacteria and viruses are harmful, but unfortunately they're single celled. And so when we aim for killing the pathogen, unfortunately the one that's harmful, we we kill some of the good ones as well. That's why antibiotics clear out all the good stuff as well as hitting the harmful ones. And then unfortunately, yeasts grow back quicker than the beneficial. So a lot of times when someone uses an antibiotic, a conventional medicine antibiotic, then they end up with yeast issues because the yeast grows back faster. And so it's learning how to control that. And so that's why we like to use things like ginger juice or garlic because they're more specific. They're not going to kill the beneficials. They actually have fibers in them and other products in them that help to grow the beneficial things while killing the other ones. So it's a little bit off subject, but let's talk about some of the herbs that can help to restore the kidneys. Is one that I learned about recently. I never even, I don't know. This is one that I heard about to help with thyroid conditions because those of you who know my history is autoimmune thyroid disease, is gotu kola. And so gotu kola helps with energy, but it also helps to boost microcirculation and has even been shown to reverse fibrosis, which I didn't even know was possible. And so gotu kola is one that I would use if I needed to restore kidney function. Have you ever heard of that?
I've never heard of that. I mean, I've heard of the herb, but I didn't know that
And that
it
it's
had those
fascinating.
properties. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just never even knew anything could help to reverse fibrosis. And then also the microcirculation, because we talked about those tiny little tubules in the kidneys. And so that's so important. And then ginkgo biloba is another one that helps with microcirculation. Now, I can't think of it, and maybe you know, because like I said, you're a better master herbalist than me, is ginkgo biloba helps with microcirculation, but there's one set of people who should not take ginkgo biloba, but I can't remember. It might be someone with glaucoma. Anyway, my point is we didn't give a medical disclaimer. And so don't go out and use these herbs without making sure that they are right for you and your body at this time. And so gotu kola, I'm pretty sure is generally safe for everyone, but it can be energizing. And so it's one I wouldn't take at night. Ginkgo biloba, wonderful for microcirculation. We hear about it for brain health, for strokes, preventing strokes, and things like that. But I feel like there is one population that should avoid ginkgo biloba. Do you know?
Um, I'm not sure off the top of my head. It could be glaucoma. It could be. It may increase pressure because it drives so much blood to the head.
Right. So maybe that's what
So,
it is. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So do your own due diligence before going out buying ginkgo biloba.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dan and I both went to the School of Natural Healing, and we studied under Dr. Christopher and Dr. Schultz. I also have been taking lots of classes with not Dr. Rosemary Gladstar, and then I also have been learning a lot from Dr. Robin Rose. And so we'll share a little bit about what each of those use to help with the kidneys as well. So where should we begin?
Well, I know that Rosemary, she likes corn silk, right? Because I mean, so did Christopher. I love that one.
Yeah, and I'm not as familiar with corn silk, but yes, they both used corn silk in their formulas. Rosemary Lestar uses a lot of minerals as well, which I thought was
Yeah.
interesting, like dandelion leaf and nettles, super um, mineral rich. And I don't remember any of the other doctors talking about those minerals.
So she uses it for like a tea that she uses a tea or tincture, dandelion root.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Right. And
yeah.
marshmallow, which is interesting too, because I think all of them
Oh,
use marshmallow because
yes.
marshmallow is, mucilaginous and healing and supportive. It's also like remember they used it even in like gangrene and could help
Yeah.
to regrow tissue and stuff like that. And so I think that's definitely a go-to marshmallow tea or marshmallow root tea for anybody.
Well, you remember also they use marshmallow because if you have stones, they claim it
Hmm.
helps the stones pass with less pain because of the
Yeah.
mucilaginous properties.
Yeah, so coating so that you pass the stones easier, but then also repairing the damage after the stone. Because think of those stones, if you've ever seen one, My husband has a long history of kidney stones, and the doctor would show them to us, and they look just like sand spurs. I'm from the beach. Maybe you haven't been to the beach and seen sand spurs. They're horrible looking, and that's what the stone looked like. And it's, if you just imagine that going through those tiny tubules, the damage it's doing as it's going through.
Oh God.
No wonder they're so painful, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yes. So Dr. Christopher, his formula, he uses parsley, which parsley is another one rich in minerals. So I don't know why I didn't think about that. So rich in minerals, but parsley is also helps with urination and is also one that's specific for the urinary tract. You already talked about juniper berry, which I love juniper berry. And Dr. Christopher talked about that one a lot for the kidneys and the urinary tract. Uva ursi. Do you want to talk about uva ursi?
Yeah, Uva ursi is also another herb that has antimicrobial properties, and it's a specific for some of the microbes that live in the bladder. Why, if the things that cause UTIs, a lot of times it's E. coli they found that causes a lot of UTIs, and Uva ursi can help kill the bacteria in your urethra and your bladder because you want to make sure. If you feel a UTI and it's in your bladder and your urethra, you want to start treating that because it can lead to the kidneys. I'm not saying it will, but it
Right.
can.
Right. And that, it's funny because Dr. Schultz has that in several formulas too. I know he even has that in his detox tea,
Yeah.
Uvarsi. Actually, I think he might have most of these in there. Yeah, and marshmallow root and ginger, which we've talked about. So Dr. Christopher has those, and that's where we went to the School of Natural Healing. So we learned a lot about that. And then we also learned with Dr. Schultz, who used a lot of the same ones he trained under Dr. Christopher too. So juniper berries, parsley root, uva ursi. He also included burdock root. Do you want to talk about burdock root?
Well, I've always thought about burdock root as it's a really good blood cleanser and it's really good to, for liver support,
Hmm.
but it also, kidneys are filtering blood. So, it's filtering your blood and it turns into urine. So
Yeah,
what could be better than a blood cleanser? I think that's exactly why he put it into his formula because
I
it
think so
helps.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And that's when that, so burdock, so even if you don't have this formula, burdock is a root that's not as familiar here in the United States, but it is in many other countries. It's a root that's used as, like a vegetable, just a root. You can put in stir fries, you could ferment it and things like that. And it's in a lot of Asian dishes. And so I buy the dried, we grow it here on our farm as well. And I'll chop it up and dry it here on the farm. Or if I don't have any, I'll order it and I just throw it in. If I'm making a soup or a stew or a broth or even beans, I'll just throw a handful in there because it's an herb, but it's a medicinal, but it's also used as a food in many other countries. And so, and like you said, it's a blood cleanser. And so it's just a wonderful addition for that. And so then I've also been reading a lot with Dr. Robin Rose, who just wrote a book. It's shout out to Robin Rose. So we are not affiliated with her at all, but she just wrote a book called Renology, and it's like this textbook and how she reversed, I want to say stage 4 kidney disease on
Wow.
herself. And so she talked a lot about different things too. She talked a lot about peptides, which we aren't going to discuss here on our podcast, but she also talked about foods that are helpful for the kidneys, fresh greens. We talked about dark leafy greens, celery, super mineral rich. We talked about minerals. Watermelon. So watermelon, very hydrating, which we haven't really talked about
Yeah.
hydration. And then lemon water. So lemon water is also it's alkalinizing to the body. Even though lemons seem acidic, they're alkalinizing to the body. They help flush the body. They also provide all these antioxidants as well as watermelon. Think of that bright red color. And so it's hydrating to the body, but also an antioxidant to protect the body from oxidation, those byproducts from breaking down foods like all of our food the byproducts from breaking down proteins and things like that cause damage, which is actually rusting. And so we don't want to have any rusting on those tiny little tubules. We want to make sure that we are eating lots of colorful fruits and vegetables to provide those antioxidants to reverse any of that damage.
I remember David telling me that going on just a watermelon diet for a few days is very healing for the urinary system. And Dr.
Mhm.
Schultz, he was running a cleanse back in the day. He was running a group cleanse, and he said that he ate two watermelons one day, and then the next day, when he had to urinate, he said it burnt so bad, and there's actually some sediment that came out because it's such a deep cleansing because they were doing just watermelon and watermelon juice for a few days.
Yeah.
And so all these foods, food as medicine, like you're saying, you put burdock in your soups, you can eat your watermelon, your celery. If you do this, those foods are going to make you so much healthier, and they're going to help with all the organs and help lessen the burden on your kidneys, like we're talking about today.
Right. Right. I love that. So we haven't talked about hydration.
Oh, well, that's a really good topic when it comes to the kidneys because if you do not drink enough pure water, that's also strains your kidneys. But you have to be sure. I mean, I'm against tap water.
Yes,
because
no
it's got
tap
all these
water,
chemicals,
please.
and also if you live and you have hard water, that's more minerals that your kidneys have to filter. I'm a believer in distilled water, and I don't care what you've heard about it. I've been drinking distilled water for at least 10 years. I
Me
have my
too.
own distiller, and distilled water will help get rid of some of that sediment that could be in your kidneys and your bladder. We could talk about this water all day long, but Jennifer and I both teach distilled water because it gets rid of inorganic minerals in your body that can lead to kidney stones.
Hmm.
So, and look, I have a distiller. It's a Mega Home. And I don't sell it, but it is a Mega Home brand, and it has been wonderful. I've had it for 12, 13 years. I use it every day, and it has never broken down. It's amazing. It was 200 bucks.
Mine was $100, but it's a countertop, so it only makes a gallon at a time. So it does, I do run it 2 or 3 times a day, or I'll run it all day and stock the fridge.
Yeah.
I have these quart jars, so I always have my glass quart jar of water to drink every day, and multiple, so don't just drink one. But mine's a countertop one. I have had to replace it once, but the same thing. I mean, it lasted for several years.
Yeah.
And but a whole house one would be even better. But we need to drink. So let's talk before we go. We are about out of time. You the suggestion is half your body weight in ounces of water a day. So if you weigh 120 pounds, 60 ounces of pure water is what you should drink a day. So what are your thoughts? So I definitely don't want you to underdrink. I mean, you should aim for that. If you drink coffee, you need more. If you are sweating, working out in high heat, you need to drink more. Can you drink too much water, and how much would be too much?
I think it's individual. Yes, you can drink too much, but I think it's individual basis. I think, like you're saying, depends on how much you weigh, depends on do you sweat a lot, depends on the climate you live in. Like we live in high humidity here. I know you do too, and it just sucks the water out of you all day long.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you've heard of there's been two cases on radio shows where
Hmm.
they're having these water drinking contests, and there have been two deaths. And I don't want to scare anybody. We're talking about these people drink like 2 gallons of water within an hour or two. And it actually, from my understanding, when you drink that much water, it actually offsets your electrolytes
Yeah.
and it causes heart malfunction. I think it's what kills.
Yeah, I think
And
so
so,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
The recommendation, half your body weight, that's a good starting point. I think because most of us do not drink enough water, so a good starting point would be half your weight in water. But then if you're sweating, I would add at least 8 or 16 more ounces of water, depending. But
Yeah. And in coffee or alcohol,
oh yeah.
then you definitely need to increase. Please, if you have any kidney issues, do not drink any alcohol or soft drinks, especially
And if
diet.
you're on a high sodium diet, you're going to need more to flush that. So I don't recommend
Right.
high sodium. You need to watch the sodium.
Yes. Yeah, very true. Okay, so we better close for today. Thank you for listening. If this was helpful for you, please let us know. We love to hear your comments. We love to have feedback from you as well. What did you like? What did you not like? What would you like to hear more about? To work with Dan, go to danthenaturalman.com. He has a 5-day program coming up that we would love for you to join. If you would like to learn more about me, you can go to holisticjen.com. That is with a W, spell holistic with a W, holisticjen.com. And I also have a monthly membership where we do food demos and the book club, and we do Qigong every week and things like that. So I'd love for you to check that out as well. But thank you again for listening, and we hope to have you join us again next week.